Hello everyone, I hope you're ready to take another trip with us. We are back to Bodrum in Turkey, where I'm taking you to a special class on how to make phyllo dough. We're going to take some lessons from some real experts. This is a very old world baking artistry. And while very few people still do this, I wanted to do an episode and present this old world art to you kids in particular, so that you can see how it used to be done.
Let's try that again from this side and pop.
Since food is influenced by the region and the culture, and culture is influenced by history, the most appropriate place for our episode to start will be taking a peek in the past. Besides trying new and amazing dishes, this is by far my favorite part of our travels. I didn't get a chance to travel much when I was a kid. And now, every time I go and see new places, I wish I could take you all with me. You kids in particular. So let's go and take a peek at this beautiful part of the world and meet some amazing people. We got a beautiful vessel and a captain to take us there.
Yeah,
Start
just
there?
I start from here,
Okay.
and then I pass from there, and you stop there, and then Hilmiye, and Bozburun, and then come back
Come back.
like this over there, and then
Very good. That's
Like any important voyage, this one too needed to be properly blessed. Our welcoming hosts wanted to send us off in a big way.
Is it always the same song?
Anchor is up and off we go. Did you guys know that Turkey has the 17th largest coastline in the world? Nearly 7,200 kilometers, or it's about 4,470 miles. During our travels, we're going to cover only a small fraction of that. The most beautiful thing about it is that the entire coastline is densely populated by ancient ruins. In this episode, we are making a stop at the ancient port of Knidos. It's estimated that this old Greek city is over 2,600 years old. Today, it's a part of southwestern Turkey and it belongs to a Dacia district. Some call it the gate of the Aegean Sea or the intersection of Mediterranean and Aegean region.
here is Knidos.
Our captain gave us a quick tour of its history, but the rest we will need to explore and find out on our own. Knidos is famous for its two ancient theaters and two harbors. The city's geological location played an important element in the city's rise. Its strategic location and its riches attracted not only ancient Greeks, but Romans, Arabs, Byzantine, and ultimately the Ottoman Empire. The city was a big exporter of olives, olive oil, wine, terracotta containers, and in doing so has provided a wide trade network between the regions. Knidos was prosperous and one of the modern cities of its time. Strong economy provided a base for both intellectual and cultural growth. Many famous astronomers, mathematicians, philosophers, doctors, and painters were either born or worked in Knidos. Some of the most known is a sculptor who made Aphrodite statue and the architect of the lighthouse of Alexandria in Egypt. Knidos is also known for one of the first and most famous medical schools ever. First examples of democracy were seen in the city thanks to judges who provided justice and peace. Knidos is surrounded with ancient monuments and is home to many ruins like the Temple of Apollo and the Round Temples, sacred groves, the necropolis, the hillside house, and the largest gravesite of the ancient times. Sadly, most of the city was damaged due to series of earthquakes, as well as local and Western researchers and looters during the 18th and 19th century. Being a foodie, I was particularly interested in any statues which were depicting the food of the era and the region. One of the things that intrigued and struck me the most were elaborate underground storage systems. From deep underground to very shallow caves, these storage areas were everywhere. As mentioned earlier, Knidos was a big exporter of olive oil. Like an ancient olive oil depot, these storages show us how olive oil was preserved, as well the amount of olive oil that was produced in this region. It's quite amazing to see parts of terracotta pottery still embedded in these storages. Knidos features beautiful climate, very similar to California, and I can see how easy it would be to grow food here. However, storing it and preserving it would be a whole nother story. So underground caves and tunnels were a perfect solution for that. This amazing ancient city has so much more to offer. Kids, I would love for you one day to come and see this place. So start saving money and start making plans. After you had a chance to learn about the land and experience some of its culture and its history, the next best thing is to try its local food. And our friend Denise knows just the right place. From the very entrance, you can tell that everything in this place is locally grown and handmade. The very entry of the restaurant is designed as a pantry. There was no doubt that these goodies were not made in a factory. From olives to peaches and homemade dishes, all the food is locally grown and handmade. So the highlight of my entire trip is that I'm finally being admitted to a kitchen with the chefs. And when I say chefs, these are not just ordinary chefs. These are ladies who bring you the true taste of Turkey. A lot of good dough, fresh dough, everything smells homemade and delicious. And this is the kind of food that I grew up on. So I think I'm up for the challenge. I'm gonna show them that even girls in America can do stuff like this. The owner was gracious enough to allow us to get inside the kitchen during his rush hour. I'm up for this. This is going to be so amazing. And I definitely don't want to fail him. All right. And just like that, I was put to work. I certainly did grow up doing this with my mom, but every chef and every baker has its own special touch, and I wanted to make sure that I was doing this right. Okay, yes. Obviously, making food like this, you really need skill. I mean, you need to do this over and over. Oh. Okay. Yes. And then the further instructions were needed. How the masters do it. Aha.
Bak yapıyorsun.
Okay.
Böyle.
Okay.
O biliyor zaten belli alışkın. Evet.
Okay. Oh my gosh, this is. Oh.
Abla 3 kişi.
So the key is to make a very, very thin dough. And so while she's doing this with stick, my mom used to do it just by stretching. And so this is what I'm going to do when we come back to US. I'm going to show you how to make a phyllo dough without the stick. But basically, when I was growing up, all the pasta was made with this little stick. All kinds of different pastas, from really thick to really thin. Okay. Oh my. And it's only going to get thinner. Growing up, I watched my mom make all kinds of pasta using the same method. she didn't have the pasta machine, so everything had to be stretched by hand and then cut by hand. So I've seen people do the same thing for pasta, but I never saw anybody make phyllo dough this way.
This whole region is known for a phyllo dough, and they make all kinds of different desserts and different dishes. And so this is one of the layers that she's just making right now. So this is how thin the dough gets. Also, while some of them are layered like this, other dough is rolled into something like a strudel. Oh, look at that!
There's a fresh batch.
Fresh batch. Oh my goodness.
And when you think the dough could not get any thinner, she continued to stretch it even further.
Bir senedir yapıyorum.
I've been doing it 1 year.
1 year?
Yes.
That's it? Evet, bir sene.
Kimden öğrendin?
Good. Annemden.
Learned from the mama.
From the mama. Okay. Evet.
I hope you will agree that her mother taught her really well.
So in the hands of masters, just the plain flour, water, and salt can turn into the amazing thing like this. So it's just a matter of you having the skill. Okay. So mixed greens, more oil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Olive oil.
Uh-huh. So you mix with hands.
Evet, harmanlayıcı.
Okay. Okay. Oh my gosh, this is wonderful.
So in the next step, we're going to stuff the dough with locally grown greens and locally made cheese. This is so much fun, but we definitely have to speed up because we're getting behind on orders. This restaurant's concept is very simple. Use only local food and hire local people who know how to work with this particular food the best. This is how the food essence of any particular region is best presented. This is becoming harder and harder in a modern society because most of the food we eat is mass-produced and distributed. Yet, I have to believe that somehow we will figure out the way to preserve different food cultures. This is one of the reasons why I produce and distribute this program.
Okay. Right. And then once they're rolled, they're going on the stove to get fried. And when done, obviously they look amazing. But beside that, there are other things going on. And if this looks like a Turkish donuts, so it certainly smells like the stuff that my grandma used to make. So let's see what she's up to here. Get a new one? Yes. A little oil. Thin them out. And this is definitely a yeast dough. Okay, good. Oh. Okay.
This takes me right back home when my grandmother would fry dozens and dozens of these on Sunday mornings for our neighborhood.
Wonderful experience. Restaurants like these still exist, and people are so close to food, and everything's handmade and made right on the spot. And I guess it's just one of the reasons why it tastes so good. Ask her if I pass.
Geçtin mi sınıfı
Will she
diyor.
give me a job? Yes? Give me a job. Very good. Do you need more? Beautiful. One more?
From there, we're back to making layered pastry. This is slightly different technique. Instead of stuffing and rolling the dough is layered, and in between the dough, different stuffing is set. This particular one is made out of the sweet cinnamony squash. Food was absolutely amazing. This restaurant has found the perfect balance between the old and new world. Somehow, small businesses are managing to survive in Turkey. And as a result, they are providing exceptional products to their community. And luckily for us, we were some of those fortunate beneficiaries. You would think that after all that amazing food we just had at the restaurant, we would not want to look at the food for a while. Well, guess what? Right after that, we stopped by a local bakery to pick up some pastry to take it to the boat. Okay, so I am back in States, and as I promised, I will show you how to make a phyllo dough. All we have here is salt and flour. I'm just gonna add room temperature water. This is not even warm water, just the regular room temperature. And then we're gonna try to create a thick, sticky dough. Once flour and water are well combined, we're gonna continue to add a little bit of flour step by step and continue to work the dough. Don't forget to keep your dish clean while you do this. After about 10 minutes working dough and getting to the perfect consistency, we're gonna complete our phase one, which means we just created a dough, we made a right texture, right consistency, and then we're gonna let the dough rest. Just gonna put some flour on the bottom and cover the dough with the towel and let it rest for about 10-15 minutes. When it comes to cheeses, I like to use variety. So I like to blend a little bit of cottage cheese, some ricotta cheese, and feta cheese. Normally, I would go about the pound of each, and then your favorite greens, which in this case, we're gonna go with spinach. When it comes to cheeses, there are a few things to keep in mind. Cottage cheese will bring the moisture, ricotta will bring the texture, and feta cheese will bring the flavor to the strudel. To the mix of cheeses, I'm also adding some spinach and about 4 eggs. With all this done, let's set up the table for the phyllo dough stretching. A special tablecloth I have designated for this purpose alone. As I mentioned in my previous recordings, this was a gift from an elderly friend. She has passed on, and I love using this tablecloth because it reminds me of her. 15 minutes into resting, and now we're going to go to phase 2 with the dough. As you can see, just by allowing dough to rest for a little bit, it has become much smoother. So now the dough is a little bit looser. We're going to work it again, because the more you work with the dough, the better dough becomes. So I'm just gonna work it for a little bit more, which is like almost like mixing it. That's what we're doing right now. After a few minutes, this turns into a great workout for your arm. We're moving to the next step. Now we're gonna divide the dough in 2 pieces. And then we're gonna go back to work with each one individually. So I'm bringing all these loose ends or cut ends in, because they're also moist compared to the outside, and they will stick together better. So you bring the loose ends in, and then you work the dough again for about 2 to 3 minutes. All right, once we have both done, I'm just gonna put more flour under, and then we're gonna give just 2 or 3 minutes for both pieces to rest. Now, as they rest, they're gonna allow us to kind of stretch them, do the first phase of stretching, and I'm gonna put a little oil, and then we're gonna let them rest once again. I'm setting up a resting area for the dough. So reason I'm taking this outside is because it's really warm, and the warmth helps dough relax faster. So I just have a kitchen towel. I'll put a little bit of flour, and once I finish up stretching the dough for a little bit, I'm gonna bring it out here and let it rest once again. At this stage, I'm just thinning the dough a little bit and basically giving it its shape. They look really good, and all that's missing now is a little bit of oil on the top so that dough does not form a crust. So I'll be right back with a little bit of olive oil. After adding oil on the top, we're gonna leave the dough to rest for another half an hour and sometimes even 40 minutes before we start the actual stretching.
So this is the biggest difference on how I'm used to making phyllo dough versus what we saw in Turkey. So instead of using rolling pin, I am gonna just stretch it. And now the dough has a chance to sit, relax, and all we're gonna do is just use your hands to stretch it to paper thin, even thinner than a paper. Initially, I will stretch the middle part first, and then I'm gonna just work the edges because the edges are the thickest. We are paying most attention to these edges because they are the thickest, and this is where we have the most space for stretching. Also, if you come close, you will see the dough has some of these little bubbles. You see these little bubbles? That's very good. That's where all of that, working the dough part have helped. So capturing the little air bubbles inside the dough will make the dough flakier and lighter. When I used to make a phyllo dough at home, my mom would make me cut the edges and start a whole nother sheet of phyllo dough or create different dishes with that. So I'll show you quickly how to do that. Dough is so thin you can read through it. How you like that? It's super, super thin. So this is a lot thinner than what you could accomplish with the rolling pin. Next step, I'm just gonna cut the thick edges. Just gonna take them off like this, because we wanna make sure that all the pieces inside our strudel are super thin. So when I was a kid, this was the part that my mom will give to me. So it was a good dough that you could start from scratch and create something else. So she would usually get the edges and she would say like, okay, go and play with that. And that's how I learned to make a phyllo dough. The next step is just putting some oil. I'm going with olive oil. So this is to make sure that all the layers are nicely separated and flaky. So we're just gonna try to kind of spread the cheese the best we can. And we're gonna use half of this on this sheet of phyllo dough and we're gonna save a half for the other one. Now this is a tricky part, and this is the part where my mom would not allow me to even get near, because now you have to roll the dough and you need to fold it actually, not to roll it. And so to do that, the key is to hold the sheet, and this is why we needed this sheet. So first we needed a sheet to make sure that it absorbs the extra moisture from the dough, and this is a second reason. You use the tablecloth to flip the dough, so to fold it. And to do that, you have to make sure that you hold the cloth firm and that you stretch it as much as you can so that there's a tension in this part right here, okay? See? And then you just go like, whoop, and there it is. Let's try that again from this side. So again, tension, stretch it, tension, and pop. Perfect.
Before folding it again, we're gonna add a little bit more olive oil in between the
Now
sheets.
we're gonna do the edges. 1, 2. All right.
A little more oil and a little bit more of cheese mixture, and then we're gonna fold it again.
We do now. Again, I'm gonna put some tension on a cloth and I'm gonna roll it first, just to kind of give it a form, and then I'm just gonna lift it up and roll it in a round roll. So first, flip, and then we go like this, and there you are. So normally what I would do, I would cut it in half and put it in a rectangular baking dish, but since we're making this the old-fashioned way, I'm gonna roll it, and I have this old dish from the old country, and I'm gonna roll it and make it just like my mom used to do. So we're gonna start by rolling the center, and then roll it out like this, and with some luck, we're gonna try to transfer it. Ah, there we go, looks beautiful.
Let's not forget about a second piece of dough. So we'll go ahead and repeat the steps to create one more part of strudel.
And with this one, we're just going to continue where we ended with the last one. Okay, this is a little bit more difficult, but here we go. All right. Doesn't this look beautiful?
Another touch of olive oil and we are ready to bake.
This was a staple food in our household. My father loved cheese strudel, so my mom was rolling phyllo dough all the time. Also, this was a kind of dish that you served to people who came to work on our fields. So if you had people helping you with hay or wheat or whatever they were doing in fields, the woman of the house would prepare these elaborate meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for everybody who worked. So this was just one of the side dishes that was often served during those days.
Bake it on 350 for about 40 to 45 minutes. Once done, the strudel will puff up like it was made out of a puff pastry. This concludes our travels for this episode. Regardless of new places we travel to and explore and the different foods we try along the way, ultimately, it's all about the people. My special thank you goes to the restaurant owner and its amazing crew who so lovingly welcomed us to their kitchen. Life is filled with wonderful encounters, and I'm certainly gonna remember this crew. Big thank you to our traveling buddies and our hostess Denise. Thank you so much for watching our program and for spending time with us. My name is VLADA'S, and I'm a founder and CEO of a charitable organization called VLADA'S of Life. To find out more about our charitable work and this particular program, please visit our website. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon again.